That was the message from African and Caribbean leaders who met in Ghana's capital, Accra. The delegates were there to intensify the global push for reparative justice for slavery. One suggestion includes plans for global panels focused on reparatory justice and restitution. The mission converts long-standing demands into real enforceable commitments.
Future generations will judge us not by the resolutions we adopted, but by the progress we achieve. And so let them say that in Accra we chose truth over denial. Let them say that in Accra we chose partnership over indifference. And let them say that in Accra we chose justice over delay. And let them say that when history called upon our generation to act, we stood up and we answered with courage.
All right. Welcome to Pan-African Perspectives, your bi-weekly live stream where we talk about all things Africa related. On this special edition, we have a special guest with us today, Maggie Debrah, who is the founder and co-founder and CEO of Ito. And we're going to talk through the historic moment where Ghana hosted 80 nations for Slavery Reparations Summit. That was last Friday, the Next Step Summit. And that was a next step after the historic UN resolution that happened back in March. Before we get into that story and more, let's start with some introductions. I started with your introduction, Maggie, but maybe I should turn it over to you to do your introduction more in full, and then I'll introduce myself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Maggie. I'm one of the co-founders of Ito. Ito is basically a discovery platform where you basically get to discover the very best of African culture, and we are starting off with food. So think, if you ever want to make Ghana jollof or light soup or a gussie, etc., you need to join Ito's ecosystem. We provide short, easy recipe videos for you to follow. We also do entertaining content as well. So we have a dating show online. And then, yeah, that's it really. It's just a space for you to really discover African culture, and then also up and coming African brands and established African brands as well to help you in your everyday life. So Ito, check us out at ito.co or on Instagram, Ito Network. That's who we are.
All right. And of course, we've interviewed Maggie a few times on the platform, and we are partnering Authentic African and Ito to bring lucky winners to Ghana. We have a contest that's going, Win a Holiday to Ghana. You can find that at ito.authenticafrican.com to enter for your chance to win a trip to Ghana, 5 days, 4 nights. I'm Joe Hotagua, CEO of Authentic African, where we help people visit, move, and invest in the continent of Africa. We do live streams weekly where we talk about what's happening on the ground, so you know about the places that you're planning to visit, move, or invest in. So back to today's topics. Today we are talking about Ghana hosting 80 plus nations for the Slavery Reparations Summit. And as I mentioned, this was a continuation to the historic UN resolution that named the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. You guys might remember there were a few people who voted no, the United States and Israel. There were others who abstained from voting. That would be the UK and the EU and Japan and others randomly who abstained from voting. But there was an overwhelming support from all African nations, all Caribbean nations, and many other nations across the world. I will also mention Russia and China both voted yes, which I think is a point that people pointed out and thought about, especially as those two are big partners on the continent of Africa, and many folks in what is called the Middle East to many, but I'm more and more calling West Asia. Also, many of those folks also voted yes. Not to also ignore, though, the fact that they also had their own version of the slave trade that happened with what's now West Asia. Okay, So with that, we want to get into the events that happened that ended on Juneteenth. And so, you know, I think many of you may or may not be aware that Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, was a graduate of an HBCU in the United States. And I think as part of that, informed a lot of his ideas around bridging the gap between the diaspora and Ghana. He even pledged to historically Black fraternity as well. And so I think that is an important part, because when you hear of Black Star Square in Ghana, that was directly inspired by the Black Star Line that Marcus Garvey himself had attempted to do. So there are so many connections between the countries. And as you can see, Ghana has led the way in this historic moment. So to give you guys a timeline, end of last year sometime, President John Mahama, the president of Ghana, did take this reparations resolution and the gravest crime against humanity's resolution to the African Union first. African Union agreed. Then they said, let's take this now to the United Nations as a secondary step. So in March, he took it to the United States. Well, actually earlier than that, it was taken to the United Nations. And then it was put to the floor for a vote. And on a historic vote, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but overwhelmingly, it was voted as the gravest crime against humanity. However, that's not enough, right? That is just a kind of a symbolic statement. And so what I appreciated about, you know, what Ghana's doing and with the others, you know, the Prime Minister of Barbados, President of Liberia even went, President of Senegal was there, and a number of others. The idea was, how do we advance this forward, right? Yes, we have had a historic vote, but now how do we advance this forward? So I'm going to play a little bit more of this video just to give you a little bit more of an idea of from a high level what happened. And then we're going to talk through the specifics and give some actually, let me give some specifics first, play more of the video, and then we'll have some more commentary on the other side. I think that's the best way to do it. So since you've already seen the clip from the video, let me talk you through what this conference was meant to do. So it was known as the Next Steps Conference or event. It concluded in Accra on June 19th, which was last Friday. It was co-hosted by the African Union and CARICOM, and that's the Caribbean group. And the summit resulted in the adoption of the unified 19-point global framework demanding formal apologies and financial restitution from former colonial powers. So the full list of heads of state is long, but in terms of just the presidents that were there or prime ministers, you had John Dramani Mahama, the president of Ghana. He's also the African Union champion on reparations. You had Mia Mottley, who's the prime minister of Barbados. She has gone viral a number of times, and we'll play a little bit of a video from her Instagram page. I think she did a good job encapsulating her feelings and her thoughts after coming back from that event. We had Joseph Boakai, the president of Liberia. We had Faye, president of Senegal. You had the president of Namibia there. You also had the president of Gambia as well. And the chairperson of the African Union Commission was there. I also mentioned that, the president of France called in remotely as well. But key event outcomes. So the framework, leaders formally approved a strategy requesting debt relief, financial compensation, and unconditional apologies from European slave trading nations. There was also the idea of global commissions. The conference laid down plans to establish 3 global panels dedicated to managing reparations and historical artifact restitution. You guys might know I have a line called Stolen from Africa. You have the Nefertiti bronze that was stolen from Egypt. You have the Cullinan stone stolen from South Africa. You have the Ashanti gold stolen from Ghana. You have the Benin bronze stolen from Nigeria. Number of different things that are living in museums in Europe. And so this calls for the return of those things. There's also the Juneteenth commemoration. The event concluded with a historic, emotional Juneteenth traditional spiritual reflection at the door of no return inside Osu's Christiansburg Castle. And so this was really kind of the overall framework for this event. Now we'll play this video, give you a little bit more context from a high level, get some more footage from the event itself, and then we'll have some commentary on the other side.
Sounds good.
The road ahead leaders warn will be difficult but necessary.
One lesson we have learned is that justice is not really a straightforward road. It is often slow and uncomfortable. However, we remain engaged as a solution has to be found. It is a fact that lasting reconciliation can only be built on truth, acknowledgement, and mutual respect.
For many, reparations must go far beyond financial compensation.
If we are to pursue meaningful reparatory justice, our efforts must extend beyond financial considerations. They must also embrace historical truth-telling, reconciliation, identity restoration, cultural healing, education, institution building, and the strengthening of our social cohesion.
Researchers say this gathering could mark a turning point fueled by renewed political will and global collaboration.
If we look back at our President Nkrumah and the Pan-African vision that he had many decades ago. So the political will is important, the organization is important, and the awareness is important. So I think when you are convening this conference that includes Ghanaians, Africans from around the continent, as well as Africans from the diaspora, you have a wonderful strategic network to bring about the change that we need.
But the reckoning, some argue, must also be cultural and deeply personal.
Whatever mental slavery we are in now, which we are in, but we don't know. And I give the president of Ghana an example of our judges, their outfits, which I've written about before. It's not fit for our climate. It's not fit for our culture, you know, and all these things are forms of mental slavery. Our education system, our clothing, our textiles, they are things we need to work on. We need our authenticity back and our heritage back.
The conference may be over, but the push for reparative justice has just begun.
All right, so a couple quick thoughts that I'll mention there. I thought that was really important. Last year, Burkina Faso banned the use by judges and lawyers of the traditional British wigs. And it is something that you see all around the continent of Africa. It's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, just to be honest, to see Africans in they have graduated from law school, past whatever the bar is, and they all have a picture. Every lawyer's office that I've stepped into, the wig.
The wigs, yeah.
The wig. And I've always found it to be fascinating that that part of European history remains and unnecessary. Now, I do have to mention, though, that many of the laws and how they were written do have a lot of roots in European history. So, for example, many of the laws in Sierra Leone, for example, I can only speak to that because I've sat in court on a number of occasions, will call back to British law, common law, colonial law, etc. A lot of it has been rewritten in the recent years, but it still calls back to some of the law that has been stated and brought from the UK. So that's just one example. But what I think was really important about this conference specifically was the fact that they brought together all these heads of state and they communicated paths forward, frameworks to work towards, things to do instead of complaints or just conversations, but actual bodies of powers and commissions to work together. And the most important thing, I think, was that it included all areas of the diaspora, not just Black Americans, not just Black Brits, but also the Caribbean, which I think is many times left out of the discussion, unfortunately. And I love how Mia Mottley has become kind of the voice for the Caribbean a lot, because she's bold. She is she speaks clear, distinct pathways and plans for a future, and she's someone obviously that people respect greatly, and I think it was important for her to be there. Also, the president of Namibia being there, because she also exemplifies that within her country in terms of childcare and schooling and the reforms that she's been doing in her country. And so it was great to see the folks from other parts of the continent, from other regions around the world, to come together, because I don't think we can do this alone. And, you know, there's the idea of reparations in the United States has been called for by many times by many folks, but it's never been a leader, a country leader of the United States that have been a part of it. There's been leaders, but not the political leaders. And I do think in order to make this happen, you need political leaders. And so I'm glad President Mahama has championed this and pushed it through. Any thoughts from you, Maggie, on the conference itself, or overall the next steps that they're working on?
Yeah, to be honest, if I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's going to prove fruitful, in the sense I don't think any reparations are going to be paid. I think if Africans are sitting here expecting for, whites, other ethnic groups to come in and save the continent, it's just not going to happen. And the reason why I say this, because, when you think about the US and what's still happening on the ground in the US, where we're seeing young, innocent Black men being subjected to ridiculous legal systems, it just shows us that racism still exists, right? And the powers that be have designed the world so they benefit from it. And if we do not see change in their own country, why would they feel the need to start deploying or to pay back for the wrongs they've done in the past? I think how we should look at it, and yes, it's a great initiative to even bring these African leaders together, but I don't necessarily think it's going to prove to give them, these African leaders, the results they want, especially when you look at the public sector, not naming any names, but, a lot of capital has even been deployed in terms of the, let's just say, fixed income market as an example. And where has the money gone? If I'm being honest, I think what African leaders need to really focus and prioritize on is, how do we solve our problems without any help? How do we work together to fix Africa's core problems without any Western aid? And the only investment, or the only partnerships we look at, is investments from strategic partners who are willing to come in and partner on a project and be 50-50 or 75 to Africa, 75 to the African country and 25 to them. I think we need to start really using our brains. And I haven't watched all the clips because there's only so much knowledge I can take in, but I also think we need to, something as big as this, I get it, right? I don't follow the legal system. I rely on my lawyers for that kind of world. I don't understand it, but I'm not forming part of my argument as the wigs we are wearing. Change the laws in your country and stop wearing the wigs, right? Like, there's some things that we have to come together and realize we can change for ourselves. We don't need a global stage, or we don't need the white man to come and tell us to do these things. We just need to have a plan. And I think also, when we look at, replacing some of, the colonial systems that have been put in place, it's like, okay, what are we going to replace it with? Do we have our own laws that are going to govern these countries well, or are we going to now invite corruption? And I think we need to have a plan for what life looks like when we don't have Western aid. That's what we need to be focusing on. We need to be focusing on what can we do together. African leaders, Caribbean leaders need to be working together, because I think one thing they always teach us is, if you sit there and wait for someone to come and do what you believe they should be doing, you could be sitting there for 100 years, you could be sitting there for 500 years. But fundamentally, you're just sitting there waiting. Whereas if you actually take the steps to take the action to make things change, you may not need 100 years to see change. And let's forget about the continent, just this country, let's just say Ghana, for instance. Let's look at what's happened in but China was never China, right? But they made some hard decisions. Singapore got independence after us. Look at Singapore now. I don't understand what we're waiting for. Is we have to do the hard work and we need to work together. No one's coming to save us. And once we realize that, because I don't think they're going to pay anything, to be honest, that's why the countries that are supposed to really say yes, that's why they said no. I mean, the US, what was their vote? What was Israel's vote? What was the UK's vote? These are the countries that run the world. If they're not voting on these things, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter what other country comes in. If you don't have the main powerhouses involved, it's not going to happen. And also, you need them to lead it. If they really want to pay back and right their wrongs, they're going to need to lead it. But I just think we need to stop wasting time. I think we need to focus on our problems and work together. And there's actually enough capital in Africa. There's enough manpower. We know the numbers when it comes to the population size. And then at the same time, you have a global diaspora that's actually interested in Africa. What are we waiting on, guys? What are we waiting on? In my lifetime, I need to see some sort of change because I'm not waiting for the white man to dictate anything about my life. You know, I see the system that works for them. And I'm grateful for the system that's worked for them because it's also allowed me to get an education. It's also allowed me to work for some amazing firms in the world. I've been paid. I'm happy. But then I also understand the problems that Ghana faces, right? And I'm taking the actions to live between two countries. Obviously, I would like to be in one country, but that's not my reality. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm taking the action. So I just think let's stop wasting time. These people are not coming to give us any money. Let's focus. I think they're not going to give us any money. So that's just all I want to say. And again, I haven't followed everything. Sure. So then, I'm just kind of speaking more from like my viewpoint and how I see things. But I see it's a nice thing they're doing, but it's nothing there. We need to do ourselves. Yeah, that's my view. Does anyone else want to join the conversation?
So let's see if there so a couple of things I would add is I do think that two things can be done at once. I do think it's important to have a truth and reconciliation and to have a global acknowledgement, even if the ones who are meant to pay it don't. I don't anticipate that the amounts that people want will be getting paid, right? I think that is a very unlikely scenario. And in fact, I think it may be unlikely that anything gets paid at all.
Yeah.
But I do think that once you have language for something, once you have a process for something, you can drive towards something, whatever that is. But to your point, it shouldn't be the only focus, right? So I do think, with this 19-point framework, because I think what you're saying, I think there was a lot of questions that people had, right? And in part of it is financial restitution, it's unconditional apologies. They're asking for cultural and ancestral restitution, global governance and financial reforms. So, they want to do structural reforms to international financial bodies like the IMF and the World Bank. They wanted to do unified global pressure to get these leaders to make these changes and a number of other things. It's a 19-point framework. I do think that many of those framework pieces, the first couple are largely symbolic. I think the others could have an impact. And I think if we have institutional frameworks for international trade and operations and operationally changes we change the way we operationalize finance between the continent and others, that does eventually impact the overall process of moving forward. But I think the most important thing that came out of this was conversations amongst countries and individuals that are from all these different places.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The reparations never come to fruition, the discussions and the frameworks for partnership and business really is what was probably the most important element of this.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, there's been conversations about trade, about flights between, you know, the Caribbean and the continent of Africa. There's all kinds of different things because, you know, we have these trade groups, right? You have the West African community, you have the you have the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. You have the East African Federation. You have a Caribbean CARICOM and other Caribbean federations and groups. These groups always operate independent of each other. So ideally, we see these folks begin to work together, and that helps with collective bargaining and the ability to negotiate better deals for our natural resources, and sharing of information and insight and intelligence when it comes to all kinds of different things, famine, when it comes to jihadist groups, etc. Right? I think all of that information sharing would be helpful, especially if we do it amongst each other who all have similar plans and goals of a path forward, versus operating with a blind belief that those who perpetuated these same crimes are here to help you progress forward, right? Okay, so a couple of things I do want to play, because Mia Mottley, as I mentioned, the Prime Minister of Barbados, is a powerful figure. She had a lot to say. So a couple of people on Instagram, though, had some comments. Raskilo says, focus on making our cultural progress and traditional practices flourish in our economic cycle. We have Lydia saying, yes, change operational processes and improve negotiations and track information sharing. Yes, I think all of those things are absolutely important. And I think trade between these groups is super important.
Yeah.
We are all net importers of products throughout the Caribbean, throughout the African continent, and we all have products that each other uses that we buy from other third parties.
Yep.
So we should be absolutely working together more.
And the thing is, I think on that, just before you go, I think people need to realize it's in your everyday decisions, right? It's in, okay, I wake up, what toothpaste am I using? Where is the food coming from that I'm eating? You know, and then once you start to create demand for like Black-owned goods, then you will start to see, because I think the problem we have is that we're not creating demand for these things, right? So therefore, it's hard for even intra-Africa trade to happen, because the demand, like we rely too much on the West. But if you make a conscious decision and you say, actually, I'm going to avoid going into a Western supermarket in Accra, for instance, and then I'm going to shop local, that shop in Accra is going to be forced to close down. And then your dollar or your pound or your cities is now going to that local market queen, local woman. She starts to feel empowered in her trade. She's then thinking, okay, I might need more, let's just say tomatoes. And then she's thinking, okay, Ghana's now not producing enough. What neighboring country can I go to? And you'll be surprised, because people will be surprised that on the ground businesses that are currently actually operating in Africa, but because of the way you shop and the way you seek for information on things, you're not connected to it, right? So it's for you to make that conscious decision to say, actually, I want to shop more Black-owned, and because of that, I'm going to stop going to these Western stores, and then I'm going to find more local stores that I can support. I'm putting my dollars in them, and then they're doing the work they need to do to basically bring you more products and more services. And then you'll find naturally, because they're seeing demand, they will start building the relationships in other parts of the continent to bring us more services. And I think that, so we just kind of need to be conscious of where are we sourcing goods from. Because I've seen some amazing women in Kenya doing avocados, etc. Let's make it make sense. Let's make it make sense for us. And we're buying these things, but we say we want all this change, and then you're going to shop at, I don't want to say the name on here, but you're going to shop at like an international supermarket in Accra. Are you really doing the things that will create the change? And you will be surprised at if 50 people move their cities from that international store and put it into the local businesses like the Market Queens, etc. You'll be surprised at the impact, the economic impact that will have on trade on the ground and what doors it potentially could open. Yeah, so that's what I want to say there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a couple of things really quickly. I saw Jada mention a good point here, the backlash this could potentially cause between Africans and Black American community. Talking reparations while heavily including the Black community in America is just asking for major trouble. Talk about sabotage, shooting yourself in the foot. I think what Jada is referring to here is the fact that some of the loudest, advocates for reparations have been those who had been trafficked, and the descendants of those in the United States. And they definitely need to be leaders in the Black community in the United States do absolutely need to be included in the conversation.
I agree with that.
I don't know who all was there. I mean, there were a lot of folks. I also know around this same time, many folks were at the launch of Barack Obama's presidential library and the center that he built in Chicago. Yeah. So, I don't know who was able to fly in from the US to go to Ghana for this in particular. But I do think it is important, though, to include prominent figures in the Americas. But again, policymakers are the ones that are going to actually get a chance to move this forward. So it would have to be policymakers in America, because we're talking about all heads of state, or many of them were heads of state that were having a lot of conversations about decisions and legislation, et cetera. And so obviously having leadership from the US makes sense, but political leadership is definitely going to be necessary because unfortunately, much of the people who've been championing this in the United States has not been political leadership in the United States, right? So, to get the US to make this decision or to be a part of this, you kind of need to have someone in position of power to do that. And that's been one of the challenges that we've had here in the US is not having allies and or partners who are really serious about it. We've had a couple of folks mention it. I heard Gavin Newsom throw it out there once, the governor of California, who's potentially running for president. I've heard him say it once or twice, and a few other folks, but it hasn't been a core part of the discussions. And so, but I do understand what Jada was saying. So what I do want to do is really quickly get to some of the comments that Mia made. I think she put together some really interesting videos, which kind of talk to her thoughts and how she sees this. So I did want to just give some time to kind of play some of what I saw because I'm a follower of her platform, and I thought it was interesting to kind of hear her comments and what she said. So let's play that, and we'll have some more commentary afterwards.
Mahama, the people of the Caribbean have come to join hands. We in CARICOM have been fighting now for virtually a decade on this issue of reparations. And we believe that this effort to bring all of our global partners here together in Accra will allow for this too to be regarded as a historic moment. We live in a world today where people call out people for everything, but yet we have not found the moral courage to state unanimously across humanity that this grave crime against humanity that persisted for centuries ought to be declared so by all. That others choose to remain silent is a reflection of them, not of us. There are others who say that there's been slavery before, but ours was the only one to declare us as chattel and as property. I stand here today on behalf of the government and people of Barbados, conscious that our duty is to repair. And our duty is to call for others to repair. Regrettably, our parliament was the first parliament to establish the 1661 Slave Code, 2 decades before the Code Noir, which has just been repealed in France. That slave code came to be mimicked, copied exactly in some of the colonies of the United States of America and the Caribbean, and in others used as a platform for their own slave laws. It is the categorization of us as subhuman. It is the categorization of us as chattel, as property, that stripped us of our dignity first and foremost, but equally removed from us the choices that are necessary in life to truly express freedom. We have come to ask that those efforts be coordinated in such a way such that we can bring healing to our population. I believe that our working together with the CARICOM 10-point plan on reparatory justice, which has been revised and which we have brought some copies here to share in Accra, will add to the excellent work which you are doing and the establishment of the committees that will carry on the work for our people. These committees, however, will only mean something if we can stay together united.
All right. I mean, this video is rather lengthy. I don't want to play the entire video. You guys can understand that, but I think you got the gist of her speech there, and I think that the biggest thing that we're walking away from this thinking is, look, we live in a capitalistic society, and in order for us to really get the truth and reconciliation, I think you need to have power, and with power, generally, it requires finance. So I think we need, as I mentioned, collective economics. We need, group economics, and to work together to build, really what could end up being a very powerful state. Whether we're not all one state or not, but we are operating together as a larger group. There's much more that we can do for our people. So, there was a lot that she said there, and I think, she made a lot of great points. And I think, beyond all the things that they've been pushing for over the last 10 years, as she mentioned, I think what's going to be really important is the trade that was discussed in those rooms, and discussions around how do we build together beyond trade, manufacturing, and all other things that are really required to kind of help advance all of our people in all of these nations. So, any other final thoughts before we move on to the next stories?
Not from me.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, cool. So with that, let's move on to the World Cup. So, obviously, Meg is in the UK and is a UK Ghanaian. Yeah. So, that's like doubly soccer heavy, football heavy, I should say.
Yeah.
Internationally football heavy. I am Americanized. And, from us on this side of the pond, we're not very much into football, international football. I mean, in fact, we call it soccer.
Soccer, yeah.
We call a game where you throw the ball football. It has confused many folks, so understandably so. But one of the things that was pointed out through many discussions that I've been having is when we watch the World Cup, many of the players from these different countries happen to be of African descent. Mm-hmm. You've made some points as well, and I think I want to play a couple of videos for you guys to kind of see how this discussion has progressed around the World Cup. And for me, what I think about a lot is, what if those people who are first generation American or first generation in these countries or immigrants actually played for their home countries? How different the results might be in the outcome of many of these matches. But before we even get deeper into that, let me go ahead and play a video here there's a couple of videos where people had some thoughts, but I thought this one was kind of interesting when you see the way each game was promoted and many times who the best players of each team might be. So I'll play a video and we'll have some commentary on the other side. We'll play two videos back to back, actually. So we'll play this one first, and then we will give you some more commentary on the other side.
According to FIFA, the whole world is black except Asia. This is Mexico versus South Korea. United States versus Paraguay. That's France versus Senegal. Spain versus Cape Verde. Canada versus Qatar.
That's hilarious.
This is Qatar versus Sweden. I mean, Switzerland.
That's so funny.
This is Sweden versus Tunisia. I wasn't wrong about Sweden either. Germany versus Morocco. This is Australia. This last one is Poland versus Chechnya.
So there's that. And then we have another very spirited conversation coming from History in 3. So there's a little bit of history and historical context in this one. So we'll play this and have some commentary afterwards.
If you ever thought you were a minority, just watch the World Cup. It don't matter what team you watch, you finna watch black excellence. Because apparently, we're the global majority. Okay, I was watching Switzerland. I said, how'd they get all those black players? They didn't even colonize anybody. That's just where the colonizers parked their money. But then I watched Qatar get washed by Canada. Most of Canada's team was black. I know I ain't the only one. I said, how many people did Harriet Tubman take up there? But then I looked again, and half of Qatar's team was black. Apparently, gold ain't the only thing that the UAE and Qatar are taking from Sudan. Too much. Sorry, there are a lot of Afro-Qataris there because of the East African slave trade from the 17th to the 19th centuries. Back to the World Cup. In typical colonial fashion, the players are black, but the coaches are white. Even the African teams, South Africa, Congo, Ghana. You know, white people get so uncomfortable when we're in charge. I mean, that's why the FBI had an entire room for the city of Compton when it became the first city west of the Mississippi with a black mayor. It's also the reason that the CIA assassinated Patrice Lumumba, the leader of Congo, staged a coup d'etat of Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, and provided intelligence that led to the jailing of Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Too much. For some reason, the West believes that the people who built their empires need overseers. That's the only reason I feel some type of way about the white coaches. I think this is the perfect moment to say, this is the real map of the world. This is the size of Africa. This is the map that the African Union is finally campaigning for. The one with the real measurements. Because in European maps, Greenland and Africa are the same size. But Africa is 14 times larger in real life. Look, we have never been a minority. There is nothing about us that is small. We are the cradle of civilization. And everything comes from us, including these whoopings on a soccer field.
Okay. Very, very aggressive, but as well. So my initial thought, the first thing I'll say is, to the points that he made, I think one of the things that I think has to happen, and it's starting to happen, is this collective bargaining and the idea of being proud of where you come from and not feeling like you need to escape from your country to get to a Western country in order to have a better life. And so to some of the points that you made earlier about policies, changes, things that need to happen within our countries, I think this is a perfect example as to why so many people feel the need to go elsewhere and still represent other countries instead of their home countries. So that's my initial thought. Your thoughts on some of the videos we just played and some of your other ideas and comments you speak about it as far as the World Cup is concerned.
Yes. So again, I mean, for me, guys, what is the average footballer's salary in sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. Oh gosh, sorry, God. What is the average salary of a footballer in Ghana a month? It's probably between $500 to $1,000. So and a lot of these footballers have come from poverty. So the point I'm making, someone that's come from poverty, if an international team, so even forget playing at the World Cup level, if an international team is going to basically take you from Ghana to London, and you go from £1,000, let's be generous, £1,000 a month to now £500,000 a month. I would hope that everyone on the call goes and works for the international team. There is nothing he needs to prove. He needs to take himself out of poverty. That is the first thing. He needs to take himself out of the situation where he's surviving through to thriving. So the African players being in international teams, I understand, because guess what the international teams are doing, or guess what the international teams have done that the African teams haven't done? They've invested in sports. They've invested in soccer. They've invested in football. So therefore, they can pay talent, the best talent in the world, to come and play for their clubs, and then ultimately get them through the route of citizenship for them to play at the national level. So I think when it comes to people saying, arguing that, yes, it's amazing right now that African talent is global. It's amazing that we're sitting in the West and we're thriving. We're on the continent and we're thriving. But I think if everyone wants to be serious about seeing more talent in Africa, then you need to talk about the infrastructure in Africa. We had Anthony Joshua, may his two friends rest in peace, visit Nigeria. They got into an accident. Unfortunately, 2 members died in, death or no impact. Anthony Joshua was the only person that survived in that, and the driver. So there was 2 of them that survived. After that incident, where was the ambulance? Where was the ambulance? So we have to be realistic. Africa at the moment is not set up for the diaspora to even come back home and bring their talents back home, right? What we need to be thinking is we need to be thinking strategically when it comes to these things. We know we have talent in the West. We know they're doing amazing things. Let's get them earning, and let's set up vehicles for them to start investing back in the continent. But should we now be online debating that, the West needs African talent for its industry to survive? No, it's actually set up. It's amazing to see that FIFA has been able to bring how many countries from across the world, not just Africa, just to come into one region and celebrate sports, celebrate football. And on the back of that, there's advertising. There's so much money that is made from this sporting event. So the point I'm trying to make is we should be seeing this as a positive thing, and we should be seeing the fact that the African diaspora are traveling to the West and are being recognized, but how do we get them to contribute back home? And that's all I was going to say on that part, really. We just need to just start celebrating our people wherever they are in the world and say, guys, do your thing, but how do we still stay connected to home, and how can you still stay connected to home? Because I think just my fear is that if we start kind of complaining that they're not playing for Ghana, they're not playing for Nigeria, etc., it starts to create a distance, a divide. And then in the teams they're playing with, they may not be around the community, and then before you know it, they're so detached from home. So okay, yes, he's playing for England, yes, he's playing for France. Let's celebrate. They need us. We know they need us. How do we work with our players to bring them to invest back home? Because that's it, really.
Yeah, so I definitely think they should invest back home. I would say, though, that there's a difference between playing in those leagues and then representing your country. So I would say the only thing I would say differently from that is if you are born and raised in one country, you should represent your country and play in the World Cup. I do understand the professional leagues. I get it. The disparity in pay is something else. So of course, 100% understand that. But to your point about bringing, sorry.
No, go on.
No, but to your point about bringing the money back home, I think that is even the most important point, right? I think giving people vehicles for how to do so, and also giving other people the opportunity to come to the continent, I think is hugely important, because what happens many times is people come back, they think about businesses, infrastructure, things that they can either improve, get involved in, do. And I think all of us collectively working together helps to kind of progress the continent forward. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to partner with you on the Winter Holiday to Ghana, because I think it's very important for people to step foot on the ground with a different context, right? To go through an experience of learning some historical facts, getting involved in some of the chocolate making and other things like that, to see, and see and learn the history of some of our countries and how things have progressed and where we are today and where we'd like to go, so that people can participate in that process. So in the interest of time, realizing that we are running low on time, I know we started 30 minutes late, so I appreciate all you guys who joined when you did. Any things we want to talk about in terms of the trip to Ghana, Winter Holiday to Ghana contest, for those who haven't been made aware, who are just hearing about this for the first time, and for those who are on the fence about whether or not they want to sign up for their chance to win a trip?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes. Any thoughts?
Sorry. Yeah, no, guys. I mean, it's an amazing trip. I think if you go through Joe's platform, you can kind of see some of the earlier communication I gave on it. I guess when we started ITO, we knew it was we're building a digital platform here, but what we kind of see as being this pan-African ecosystem where we're just celebrating the culture, we said, when it comes to incentives or events, we want it to be meaningful for ones. And for me, I think when you think about, I love food, I love quality food, I love African food. It's just so flavorsome. So I think when we birthed the Winter Holiday to Ghana competition, it was just well, how cool would it be for us to fly winners into Accra and let them experience authentic African flavors on the ground, in person, in Ghana, on the continent. I mean, for the competition, this is the second time we'll be running the competition. Last year, we flew our winner, Tamara. She was from, I believe, Houston, Texas, Houston. Sorry, there's so many states. I get confused with the American system, but
she's definitely from Texas, for sure.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Well, she's living in Texas. She's actually from Philly, but she came from Texas to Ghana. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah. So, I think for us, it was just it's just a way for us to give back, and we just felt. I mean, with Tamara's experience last year, it was amazing for us as an organization, because this was Tamara's first time on the continent, yellowed in Ghana, right? And then at the same time, I think when we look at this competition, it's an annual thing we're going to do. We want it to grow into something bigger. We want it to grow where we can take multiple people from different regions of, whether it's the West and parts of Ghana, and bring them into Accra. Have everyone obviously enjoy Ghanaian culture, but it's really just about connecting people. And I think that's what I love about what we're doing at ITO, because when I think about African culture, food is very big for us. It's Sunday dinner, just bringing people around, talking about how stressful your work week is, what's going on. And I think for ITO, this is what food is doing for us, is us building this global digital platform for people to learn how to cook African flavors, see the ecosystem, and then also saying, okay, every year a few people are going to be able to win a trip to Ghana and experience it for the first time. So even if you're on the fence, there's a way you can enter the competition for free. Guys, free. All you have to do is basically, go on ito.authenticafrican.com and it will set out how you enter for free. You just have to post your details in. Or alternatively, you just make a small payment and you could be the lucky winner. But ultimately, the competition is not going nowhere. I'm hoping over time we can evolve it into something bigger. And it's amazing. I just think, for me, I just remember if I was in uni, or if I was just in my early career, or let's just say I was in the UK and I'd never been to Ghana before, a competition like this is amazing for me, because not only do I get a free flight, a free accommodation, I also get an organization that understands the Ghanaian ecosystem to host me in Accra. So yeah, and that's the page right there. So you can kind of check out our campaign, and then you can also, and then the section that Joe's just highlighted right now, this also shows you the ways you can enter. And then you could, if you click the See the 2025 experience, that will also bring you down to Tamara's experience last year. And what we do say for people entering the competition, you have to be comfortable to be filmed, because Ito is a digital platform. So everything we do, we like to take content just to show our global audience what is also happening in the experience. So yeah, this content here shows Tamara's experience. And then, you know, Joe's also had an interview with her.
Yes.
To get live feedback. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so for those who aren't aware, I met Tamara last year while I was in Ghana on my trip. Just so happens that my trip overlapped with hers. And so I had reached out to Maggie, let her know that I was in Ghana, because as I always do, I reach out to everybody who I know who's in country or who generally is in the country to let them know I'm in country. She was in the UK, but she mentioned that her winner was there. And so I sat down and met with Tamara, and she explained what her experience was. And so I met her on, I think, this day, whenever she had the next day after she had landed. And so she had already experienced some of these things. And there were a couple events that we had gone to, and she had explained what it was like to be at this fashion show, what it was like with the chocolate, what it was like going to the Kwame Nkrumah Museum. And so all of those experiences and the red carpet that was rolled out for her, and the really top tier, top quality experience that she had led me to want to partner with Ito on this experience. So that's why you see our two brand logos at the top here. And we do want to mention that one winner has already been announced. She's from the UK. She will be coming to Ghana. We're looking to get to our next winner once we hit the 3,000 entries. So make sure you guys enter. The more entries you do, the more entries we see, the more likelihood you have a chance to win. And I will say, in my interview with Tamara, I thought what was interesting is that she did a significant number of entries. She did over $100+ in entries, because she was like $100. She's like, I'm supporting a Black-owned business. That was her words exactly, and also gives me more opportunities to either go or support the people who are going. And so I thought it was a really good way to think about it. And so the interview with her, you guys will be seeing that shortly. It was a great conversation with her, because she had like a really good mindset for how she approached it. And it obviously worked out for her, because she went to Ghana and she her stay as well. So yeah. So
it did work out for her. And I guess, again, like, you know, it's a competition, guys. So may the best individuals win, but it's something we at Ito are going to do annually. So you definitely want to be following both Authentic African, or you're already, and Ito, to stay up to date with our competitions and our community give back. But I think, again, you know, even if we listen to the earlier message, we really are in a time where we just need to support our own and support the things that we have going on. And I think for those that are curious about Africa, curious about Ghana, this competition, hopefully you win. Even if you don't win, it's just a good way for you to basically, you know, see what's going on in Ghana, because we take really strong content on the winners when they arrive. You know, we really do host them. So even in the experience, what we try to do is really immerse you in Ghanaian culture. So when it comes to our food, for instance, fufu and light soup, you know, we love our fufu. So we always ask that our winners try some of the local dishes. You know, you have jollof rice. Jollof rice, I think a lot of people in America have heard. You have spinach stews. We just have so much flavors that we just want to immerse our winners in. And then we also have other experiences. So, you know, Ghana's the second largest African producer of cocoa. So when you have a chocolate bar, the ingredients to make that chocolate bar actually could have come from Africa. And unfortunately, when it comes to the confectionery industry, after Côte d'Ivoire, we don't touch a significant percentage of revenue that's being made. It's all being made by Western countries. So, you know, there's amazing companies on the ground. The one we took her to was, if I remember, it was from 1957. You could see the video on our page. But ultimately, she had they went through the history of cocoa, how they make chocolate. She had a chocolate making class, and I think this is where we're, you know, for us, it's showing you the culture, it's showing you the history. She visited Kwame Nkrumah Museum as well. At the time, she was in Ghana around Dirty December, so we had a lot of events happening. There was a fashion show at Treehouse, Beanie Man was there. I mean, December in Ghana is a vibe. So, you know, we've really been particular about when we host this competition, because we want to give our winners the best experience. But again, I would say go and check out ito.authenticafrican.com and just have a look at Tamara's experience. And then also, Joe, confirm, have you uploaded Tamara's video on YouTube?
No, it needs to be edited. So we have to edit the video first. But yeah, but once the video gets edited, we'll make sure that you guys have access to it. And there'll be plenty of clips from it as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that, because you'll get a chance to hear directly from her experience. I mean, I asked her, you know, a lot of questions. I mean, it was quite a lengthy interview. So we'll have a bunch of clips for you guys to see over the next week or so. So definitely stay tuned for that. I do have to jump. Of course, the day job is calling. I wish we could spend some more time talking about this, but you know, that's what covers the cost of all these live streams, etc. So, but you know, we want to thank everybody who joined and who has been involved in the conversation. We would love to continue to hear from you. Remember to go to ito.authenticafrican.com to enter for your chance to potentially win this trip or this holiday to Ghana. Ensure that you go there as soon as this video is over. And those of you who haven't already, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to this video and the Ito platform. It's Ito Network.
Ito Network on Instagram. And then you can also find us. You can join our mailing list. And our mailing list is where all the action happens, because that's where we're sending out the recipes. We're also giving our community access to discounts. We're also telling you live cultural activations that are happening in the city near you. And we actually also cover the US, but we tend to cover New York, DC, and we covered Chicago recently just because of Obama's center, but you guys already knew about that anyway. So yeah, so head to ito.com, join our mailing list, and at the same time follow us on Instagram at Ito Network or TikTok Ito Network. And even if you're unsure now, just follow us to understand our community, what we do, and the competition ends end of July, so you have time to make a decision.
Yep, and you can follow me at authenticafrican.com and with or just Authentic African on all platforms as well. And with that, thanks for watching. We will see you guys all in the next live stream. Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.